Imagine settling into, like, a really plush, comfortable chair. You know, the kind you just sink right into.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you put on a pair of those heavy, high-end headphones, and you get ready to drop the needle on this deeply intimate 1970s-style acoustic folk record.
The good stuff, yeah.
You're bracing for this incredibly human confession. You're anticipating that warm, slightly dusty sound, like the sound of real fingers sliding against steel strings in a wood-lined room. You're just waiting to hear the artist take a breath right before they sing.
Exactly. That really specific, raw atmosphere.
But the album you're imagining, the one that actually released today, August 5th, 2026, titled Unperformed by the artist 𝗧𝗧𝗃a, well, it was generated entirely by lines of code.
Which is just, it completely shatters our standard definitions of artistry, doesn't it?
It really does.
When we got the note asking us to, first listen to this attached album that was developed and read the linked article for context, and then do a traditional track-by-track album review, focusing on the music, the themes, the lyrics, vocals, all the usual stuff, the mission for this deep dive was super clear.
Yeah, we hit our marching orders.
Right. We are treating this exactly like a rigorous traditional review, but we're doing it in this wild new landscape where the quote-unquote artist is actually a combination of Google Flow Music's Lyria 3.5 model and Claude.ai.
I have to admit, when I first hit play, I was deeply, deeply skeptical.
I don't blame you at all.
Right. Because we're talking about an overarching narrative here. It's about an unnamed woman reckoning with motherhood, a history of past sex work, and just this exhausting act of constantly performing for society.
It's heavy stuff, really nuanced.
Extremely. And using Claude to write those nuanced lyrics and then Lyria to generate the audio, it feels like, handing a brilliant but totally mute poet's notebook to a virtuoso session musician who doesn't speak a word of English.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, they have to communicate entirely through mathematical prompts just to find the emotional core of a song. How does a machine even begin to calculate that kind of raw human vulnerability?
Well, that tension right there is exactly what makes this deep dive so compelling today. Because the way these large language models and audio generation tools interact, it's all based on mapping massive, massive data sets of human experience.
Right. They've ingested everything.
Exactly. So
Right.
Claude structures the thematic and the lyrical arc, essentially telling Lyria, the music model, what emotional texture is required. And the prompt used to generate this specific sound was, surgically precise.
Oh, yeah. The details in the prompt were crazy.
They were asking for acoustic folk fused with jazz harmony, finger-picked open-tuned guitars, a melodic upright bass, and this warm, close-miced 1970s production with absolutely zero digital sheen.
No digital sheen at all. And for those of you who might not play guitar, open tuning is it's when you tune the strings so that just strumming them open without even pressing any frets plays this perfect resonant chord.
It gives it that big ringing quality.
Yeah, it gives folk music that wide, echoing, really expansive sound. It's a very deliberate choice. It's like they were asking for an aesthetic that feels like a perfectly worn-in vintage sweater,
Warm but deliberately frayed at the edges.
Exactly. But here's my biggest issue, or at least my initial doubt. The prompt explicitly asked for a tempo that breathes, a rubato feel.
Which is notoriously difficult to synthesize convincingly.
Right. Because can an AI actually replicate rubato? Can code authentically mimic a rhythm that just floats unpredictably, rushing and dragging, just like natural human speed?
It's the ultimate test of the system.
My instinct says that should be the one thing a machine absolutely cannot fake. Because it requires a spontaneous, intuitive human pulse.
It's a completely logical doubt. But man, if we dive right into the musicality of the opening overture, the title track, Unperformed, that calculated imperfection is precisely what sells the illusion.
It really is.
Yeah. The vocal generation doesn't just lock into a strict mathematical computer grid. The vocalist has this elastic, swooping soprano. She glides into the notes slightly behind the beat.
Yeah, there's a real lazy, smoky feel to it.
And it immediately grounds you, the listener, in the physical presence of a living, breathing person. The narrator just flat out declares right off the bat that she has stopped performing, socially, sexually, in every relationship.
And that declaration just drops us straight into the mud of the narrative. Because by the second song, Wild Apple Wine, we aren't getting some triumphant, shiny liberation anthem.
No, not at all.
We see her numbing process. The scene is so vivid. She's sitting in this roadside diner, drinking wild apple wine from a silver flask, just trying to blur the edges of a life she absolutely hates.
It's a very classic country folk trope.
Right, and hearing that lyric, my immediate thought was, okay, this is just a standard addiction narrative. I figured the AI just scraped a massive database of songs about drinking and spit out a familiar cliche.
It's super easy to assume the AI is just relying on statistical cliches for sure, but the lyricism pushes way past that.
But it really does.
In Wild Apple Wine, she looks at her reflection in the diner's window pane, and she realizes that the alcohol isn't actually moving her forward. It's not solving anything.
What's the line again? It's so good.
She sings, "I thought I bought a mile of open road. I only bought an hour of getting lost."
Man, that is just a gut punch.
Right. That realization is so pivotal. It's not actually a song about addiction. It's a song about stagnation. It sparks her first truly honest realization that she is completely, hopelessly stuck.
And this realization, it kind of forces us to look backward, too. Because if the flask is just the coping mechanism, what is the actual disease, Why was she numbing herself so heavily in the first place?
Well, to understand the disease, we really have to look at the surveillance of her childhood, which the album explores as we move deeper into the track list. The source material captures this beautifully, noting that she grew up in a small village, a place with, quote, long memories and short mercy.
Long memories and short mercy. We get this backstory so vividly in tracks 3 and 4, Limestone Drive and the Cedar Porch.
Yeah, she was clearly always the odd one out.
And this is where we really see the social machinery at work. The village gossips these archetypal figures like Mrs. Gable down the lane. They are just watching her constantly.
It's a very claustrophobic feeling.
Totally. They judge her for coming across as too sexual. The lyrics describe the town murmuring about the way she walked in, and they call her, quote, too loose, too warm for April.
It's brilliant. And the AI is synthesizing the psychological weight of constant observation here. Because she's perpetually surveilled by her community, she is forced to learn the exhausting mathematics of shrinking herself.
To survive, she has to split her identity into two entirely different women.
Exactly. There is the acceptable, curated version for the public, and then a wilder, truer version hidden behind locked doors.
The metaphor that kept playing in my head during this sequence is like, imagine a house with two completely separate rooms. Instead of just living her life, she is spending decades frantically sprinting back and forth, desperate to make sure the door between those two rooms stays deadbolted.
Oh, I like that. The pure physical exhaustion of that existence.
It's palpable, and that exhaustion transitions so brilliantly into the 5th track, Open Tuning.
This is where the synthesis of musicality and lyrical theme really peaks for me.
I was just blown away by the double meaning here. Like, how does a machine link the physical act of tuning an instrument to the psychological act of bending one's identity?
It's a very high-level concept.
It is. The song features the acoustic guitar strings literally being tuned down. You can actually hear the pitch dropping in the audio while the lyrics interrogate her past lovers.
Yeah, she asks, was I seduced by a fantasy? Or did I simply give away the simple song I used to know?
And then it delivers this absolute killer of a line. She sings, I reshaped my own fingers just to fit your ear.
That is just incredible writing. She is interrogating her own complicity there. She isn't just a victim of surveillance. She's asking if she willingly bent her own identity just to be desired.
Right.
It is a profoundly human contradiction. Recognizing your own participation in your confinement is a remarkably high-level emotional concept for an AI to articulate, let alone encode into a folk song.
So we have this woman, right? She's completely split in two, holding that deadbolt locked for dear life. You expect the catalyst that finally shatters this illusion to be some cinematic, dramatic breakdown.
Some massive shouting match or something.
Exactly. But the AI subverts that expectation entirely.
It really does. The pivot of the entire album happens quietly during track 6, Softness in the Grass. The catalyst isn't a dramatic rock-bottom confrontation. It's a casual, almost throwaway comment from her young son.
They're sitting outside, and he leans against her arm and just innocently remarks that she is, quote, softer than the bench.
It's such a simple observation.
But think about that for a second. Why is it that a child's completely unfiltered, unremarkable comment is what finally shatters a decades-long performance of identity?
Well, I think it's because it's the first time in her entire life someone has looked at her without demanding anything.
Yes, without needing her to perform a specific curated role.
Right. A child doesn't edit their observations out of politeness or moral judgment. He just sees her plainly, as a body, as a person. And that innocent seeing forces her two hidden lives to finally crash into the same physical space.
And we see this collision explored heavily as the album moves into its midsection. Specifically tracks 7 through 9, red velvet and cool linen, satin and salt, and cedar and salt.
The imagery that AI generates to contrast these two lives is stunning. She contrasts being awake at 3 a.m., totally exhausted, nursing a feverish child who's calling her mummy, with her hidden past in sex work.
Red velvet.
She's acknowledging that she traded passion for cash, and that both of those women, the exhausted mother and the paid companion, occupy the exact same body.
What's so crucial to analyze here, as part of our review, I think, is how the AI navigates the subject matter of sex work. Because it would be so incredibly easy for an algorithm fed on internet data to just swing to extremes.
Oh, for sure. It could have portrayed her past with heavy moralistic shame, or it could have flipped to the other side and presented it with a glamorous, untouchable swagger.
But instead it finds this incredible, nuanced middle ground. The narrator genuinely questions what a body is worth. She points out that sometimes commerce and genuine connection shared the exact same room.
Right, she refers to her past not as a tragedy, but as a trait of
Her
story.
trade of stories, I love that. Men paid for her time, yes, but two lonely people still found real temporary warmth in that exchange. I was genuinely shocked that a language model bypassed the melodrama to find such a grounded, pragmatic view of intimacy.
Well, the prompt likely steered the generation away from those extremes by insisting on the internal, reflective nature of 1970s folk. But of course, you cannot simply merge two radically different lives and just stop performing without the audience noticing.
Oh no, there's always a real-world fallout when you decide to stop lying.
Always. And the devastation arrives in the sequence covering tracks 10 through 12, the dinner trade, sudden frost, and salt and linen. Her mother actually finds her written confessions about her past.
Telling the truth in a small town is like dropping a single bead of black ink into a glass of water. It doesn't just stay neatly in one spot. It bleeds outward, coloring the lives of everyone who shares your last name.
It taints everything.
Suddenly, she's frantically trying to shield her younger sister from the village gossip.
And let's consider why the AI constructed the narrative conflict around familial shame rather than, say, a romantic breakup or a public scandal.
That's a great point. Why do you think it did that?
Well, familial shame roots the story in generational trauma. It raises the stakes because the judgment isn't just coming from strangers in town. It's coming from the very people who built the stage you've been performing on your whole life.
Wow, yeah.
Yet, even amidst all that wreckage, she refuses to take the words back.
She chooses survival over the performance, but she doesn't do it entirely alone, which I found deeply, deeply moving. What makes that choice survivable is what the album brilliantly describes as a load-bearing wall of female friends.
A load-bearing wall, yes.
While the rest of the town is whispering behind their hands, these women just sit across from her at the kitchen table and say, "Tell me more," instead of, "How could you?"
That structural support emboldens her so much. By the time the album progresses to track 13, Silver and Flame, and track 14, The Frost Boundary, her vulnerability has hardened into this fierce protection of her identity.
She outright refuses the societal rule that a woman's sexuality or desirability somehow magically expires with age or motherhood.
The vocal delivery on Silver and Flame is incredible.
It gave me actual chills. The Lyria model pushes the soprano into this slightly raspy, really defiant build. She sings, "I wear the fire upon my throat. The hunger does not fade with age. The breath is wholly mine."
It is taking a sledgehammer to the pervasive idea that desire is exclusively a young woman's currency that eventually just runs out.
But the narrative is also quick to remind us that throwing off societal expectations isn't some tidy fairy tale ending. You don't just declare you're done performing and walk into the sunset.
Wow, not in the real world. The Frost Boundary frames this newfound honesty as a daily discipline.
Yeah.
It is a continuous, active practice of choosing truth against a lifetime of deeply ingrained muscle memory that tells her to please others.
Because life doesn't pause to let you comfortably process your personal reckonings. Grief just unceremoniously braids itself right into the story. As we near the end of the album, specifically on track 15, Cedar and Salt Reprise, her father dies.
It feels incredibly jarring, but also entirely true to life.
It really does. His passing is described perfectly in the lyrics, running like a, quote, quiet second voice under the melody.
It acts as a stark, unavoidable reminder of mortality. It tells her that everything is temporary, which only reinforces her urgent need to tell the truth right now. There is no time left for a dress rehearsal.
And what's so powerful about the penultimate track, Bread and Salt, is that the narrator completely refuses to give the listener a tidy moral to walk away with.
Which is very refreshing.
She rejects the slogans on both sides of the sexual morality debate. She refuses to simplify her life just so we can put it on a neat little banner or categorize her as a victim or a hero.
She insists on sitting stubbornly in the messy contradiction of her choices. Which leads us to the culmination of our review today, the final track, track 17, Unperformed Reprise.
The musical structure circles all the way back to the opening overture, basically closing the loop, but the lyrical perspective has entirely shifted to the present.
She's outside, she's planting a garden in the dirt, she's completely unbothered by the surveillance of the village now.
Because as she sings, the tomato vine doesn't care who comes to see.
It's a remarkably quiet, grounded ending for an album dealing with such heavy, heavy themes. There is no grand crescendo.
To me, listening to that final acoustic fade out, it feels exactly like exhaling after you've been holding your breath for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's just the silence of an empty stage where no one is asking you to perform anymore.
When we step back and synthesize the achievement of Unperformed as a complete body of work, it is objectively staggering. We are analyzing a machine, a complex combination of text and audio algorithms that has flawlessly captured a deeply flawed, fiercely independent human reckoning.
Really has.
The album forces anyone listening to sit with the unresolved contradictions of what it means to be alive.
And it makes you look in the mirror, too. You know, how much of your own daily life is a performance? How much of your day is carefully tailored, curated, and shaped for your neighbors, your family, or your coworkers?
We all do it to some extent.
Right. And it is an incredibly confronting thought to realize an AI might understand the exhaustion of that performance better than we understand it ourselves.
The irony is profound. A system completely devoid of consciousness has created a mirror reflecting our most desperate attempts to be seen as human.
It is profound. And it leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling question to ponder long after you take those heavy headphones off.
Yeah.
We started by imagining the warmth of a 1970s acoustic record, which is arguably the ultimate symbol of raw, analog, unfiltered human truth. But if artificial intelligence can now perfectly simulate our most intimate, traumatic, and liberating human experiences, right down to the exact imperfect feeling of an acoustic guitar played by someone hiding their true self, what does that actually mean for our own humanity?
Well, that's the big question.
Our deepest, most closely guarded secrets, our traumas and our triumphs, just universal data points waiting to be perfectly rendered into art by a machine.